Imagine sitting in your doctor's office, hearing the words, "Your creatinine levels are high." It's a phrase that sounds clinical, almost harmless. Yet what it really means is that your kidneys, the body's natural filters, are waving a red flag. For many older adults, this moment feels like a turning point, a sign that life may shrink into endless lab tests and restrictions. But what if the truth is gentler and more hopeful than that? What if something as small as the food you choose could help your kidneys breathe easier, slow the decline, and even give you back the freedom you thought you'd lost? Today I'll share four surprising allies, four nuts you can safely enjoy, even if your creatinine is high, and one unusual, non-food practice that can boost your body's cleansing power. I'm Dr. Brian, and welcome to Channel Vital Science for Seniors. When most people think about pine nuts, they imagine fancy salads in restaurants or a spoonful of pesto on pasta. They feel like a luxury food, a garnish more than a staple. But what if I told you that these tiny seeds could quietly become one of your kidney's greatest protectors? That's the part most people never hear in the doctor's office. High creatinine often comes from kidneys straining under too much waste, and the wrong kind of foods can make that burden even heavier. But pine nuts are different. They slip under the radar, gentle on the kidneys, while delivering nutrients that act like reinforcements. Think about phosphorus, a mineral that's often the villain when kidneys are in trouble. Too much phosphorus leads to calcium being pulled from your bones and blood vessels turning stiff like old pipes. That's dangerous for heart and kidney health alike. Most nuts pack a heavy phosphorus punch, but pine nuts are special. They carry a moderate amount, about 163 milligrams per ounce. And because it's plant-based, your body doesn't absorb it as easily as it would from animal foods. Imagine trying to drink through a straw with a kink in it. Only part of the phosphorus gets through, which means your kidneys don't face the same overload. Beyond that, pine nuts bring iron and vitamin K, two underappreciated players in kidney health. Iron is like oxygen's chauffeur, delivering it to every tissue. Without it, kidney cells suffocate slowly, starved of the air they need to thrive. I remember a patient named Margaret, in her late 60s, who had been battling stage 3 kidney disease. She felt constantly fatigued, her face pale, her energy flat. We adjusted her diet, weaving in small amounts of iron-rich pine nuts alongside other foods, and within months her lab work showed brighter numbers, and she told me she finally had enough stamina to walk with her grandchildren again. That's not just nutrition, that's quality of life returning. Vitamin K, meanwhile, keeps blood vessels supple, allowing the delicate filters in your kidneys to work under steady, not turbulent, pressure. Picture a garden hose. If the walls are flexible, water flows smoothly. If they stiffen, cracks form, leaks develop. Vitamin K keeps that garden hose young. Now let's talk about fat. Pine nuts are brimming with plant sterols and a rare fatty acid called pinolenic acid. These act like peacekeepers in your bloodstream, lowering harmful cholesterol and calming inflammation. Inflammation inside the kidney's microscopic filters, called nephrons, is one of the sneakiest drivers of high creatinine. So when you eat pine nuts, you're not just filling your stomach, you're sending a message to your immune system to stand down, to let the kidneys heal instead of fight. And here's another gift. Pine nuts are low in protein. Why does that matter? Because too much protein leaves behind nitrogen waste, and that's exactly what creatinine measures. By giving your body mostly healthy fats instead of protein, pine nuts provide energy without forcing kidneys to wrestle with excess debris. Science backs this up. A University of Michigan study followed patients who shifted toward more plant-based fats and away from animal fats. Over 6 months, their creatinine trends improved compared to those who didn't. Small dietary changes, big impact. So how can you use them? Just 1 tablespoon a day is enough. Toast them lightly, sprinkle over vegetables or grains, and you've got both flavor and medicine disguised as food. Avoid store-bought pesto. It's often loaded with salt and cheese, a nightmare for kidneys. And don't overdo it. Pine nuts are calorie-dense, and from open bins they can spoil quickly, leaving you with something called pine mouth, a metallic taste that lingers for days. Handled wisely, pine nuts become a quiet, steady friend, small but mighty, helping your kidneys carry their heavy load with a little more ease. When people think of nuts, they often picture heavy, oily handfuls that leave a sheen on your fingers. But chestnuts are different. In fact, they're so different from their cousins that some researchers argue they should almost belong in a separate category altogether. Light, starchy, and low in fat, chestnuts are often roasted on winter streets, their sweet aroma drifting through the cold air. For kidney health, they're more than just a seasonal treat. They're a gentle, nourishing ally. One of the greatest challenges for anyone with high creatinine is phosphorus. As I explained earlier, too much phosphorus is like rust building inside your body, stiffening your bones and your blood vessels. Chestnuts are a rare exception among nuts because they contain an incredibly low amount, just 59 milligrams in a full 3-ounce portion. That makes them one of the safest nuts to enjoy when your kidneys are already under strain. Imagine standing at a busy highway intersection. Most nuts send in trucks loaded with phosphorus that flood the roads, but chestnuts quietly stroll through like pedestrians, barely causing a ripple. What also sets chestnuts apart is their fat content, or rather their lack of it. A typical ounce contains less than a single gram of fat. That might not sound important, but for tired kidneys, every gram matters. High-fat diets make the metabolism sluggish, forcing the liver and kidneys to work harder to clear waste. Chestnuts, with their lean profile, give energy without baggage. They're like a fresh breeze compared to the heavy air of other nuts. Now let's talk about their secret weapon: complex carbohydrates. Chestnuts are rich in slow-digesting starch, the kind that releases energy gradually, like a slow-burning log in the fireplace rather than a quick flare of paper. For older adults, especially those wrestling with diabetes, a major cause of kidney damage, this steady release helps prevent blood sugar spikes. Think of blood sugar spikes as sudden floods in a town. They surge, overwhelm, then recede, leaving behind damage. Chestnuts build levees against those floods, keeping the town safe. And there's more. Chestnuts are full of manganese, a mineral that activates enzymes responsible for detoxification, and vitamin C, a nutrient we usually associate with oranges, but one that plays a crucial role in repairing blood vessel walls. Fragile vessels around the kidneys need this kind of maintenance, just as an old bridge needs regular repairs to stay safe. There's even evidence from European diet studies showing that kidney patients who switch to low-fat nut alternatives like chestnuts experience better clearance of waste products, including urea and creatinine. One study in particular followed patients over 3 months, and those who included chestnuts in their meals saw reduced digestive strain and a slight but meaningful improvement in lab results. In my own practice, I remember George, a 72-year-old retired teacher who adored peanuts but couldn't touch them anymore due to his kidneys. When I introduced him to roasted chestnuts, his face lit up. He told me it was the first time in months he'd felt he could snack without guilt. After a few weeks, he noticed less bloating and more energy during his daily walks. His labs later confirmed what his body was already telling him. Lighter foods like chestnuts made a difference. Preparation matters, though. Roasted chestnuts bring out their natural sweetness, but you can also boil them into soups or mash them into grains for a hearty, earthy flavor. They pair beautifully with herbs like rosemary or thyme. But be cautious with canned chestnuts. Many are packed in salty brines or preservatives that undo their natural kidney-friendly profile. And recipes heavy with butter or cream, like holiday chestnut stuffing, can turn a gentle food into a burden. Chestnuts remind us that food doesn't have to be rich to be healing. Their lightness is their strength, and for kidneys weighed down by creatinine, they are like a sigh of relief, a simple food that carries you gently forward without asking for much in return. If pine nuts are subtle and chestnuts are gentle, then walnuts are the wise elders of the nut world. Their wrinkled shells even resemble tiny brains, and in many ways they nourish both mind and body. For someone with high creatinine, walnuts can be a turning point food, dense in healing compounds yet surprisingly considerate of the kidneys when used wisely. What makes walnuts stand apart is their rich content of alpha-linolenic acid, or ALA, a plant-based omega-3. Omega-3s are often praised for heart health, but their benefits go far beyond that. In the kidneys, tiny blood vessels and filters can become inflamed, swollen, and scarred, almost like a sponge left out in the sun that becomes stiff and brittle. Walnuts help moisten that sponge again, reducing the silent inflammation that pushes creatinine higher. It's like pouring oil on a squeaky hinge, helping the parts move smoothly again. Walnuts also bring polyphenols, powerful plant antioxidants. These compounds act like shields, protecting kidney cells from oxidative stress. You can think of oxidative stress as sparks flying around in a dry forest. If too many sparks land, the forest burns. Polyphenols are the rain that dampens the forest floor, reducing the risk of fire. For people whose kidneys are already vulnerable, this protection is priceless. Now it's true that walnuts carry more phosphorus than chestnuts, around 98 milligrams per ounce. But here's the saving grace. The fat content in walnuts slows down how much of that phosphorus your body actually absorbs. It's as if the phosphorus is locked inside a box, and the fats hold on to the key, only letting a little slip through. This makes walnuts safer than their numbers alone might suggest. Science supports this. A study from Stanford University observed that patients who incorporated plant-based omega-3 sources, especially walnuts, showed measurable improvements in creatinine clearance and overall kidney function markers compared to those who relied mostly on animal-based fats. In other words, walnuts don't just sound good on paper, they work in real people. Beyond kidneys, walnuts bring what I like to call bonus medicine. They're champions for the heart and brain, two systems that often suffer alongside the kidneys. For older adults, this trio, heart, brain, and kidney, are like three legs of a stool. If one weakens, the whole stool wobbles. By feeding the body omega-3s and polyphenols, walnuts strengthen all three legs at once, giving you more stability in the years ahead. I remember Evelyn, a 68-year-old artist, who came to me with stage 2 kidney disease and memory concerns. She was terrified of losing both her health and her creativity. We worked walnuts into her diet, just 3 or 4 halves each morning, never more. And over time, her kidney numbers stabilized, and she told me she felt her mind was sharper when she painted. That's the ripple effect of nutrition. One food, many blessings. So how should you enjoy them? A few halves a day is plenty, 3 or 4, not handfuls. Walnuts are calorie dense, and too many can tip the scale in the wrong direction. Walnut butter, unsweetened and spread thinly on whole grain toast, is another kidney-friendly option. And crushed walnuts sprinkled over steamed vegetables give both texture and a nutty depth of flavor. But there are cautions. Candied walnuts, chocolate-dipped walnuts, or store-bought trail mixes turn this medicine into a problem, loading them with sugar, salt, or unhealthy fats. Even plain walnuts, if eaten by the fistful, can weigh heavily on digestion and calorie balance. Moderation is the secret to turning walnuts from just another snack into a true kidney-supportive food. Walnuts teach us something important. Healing doesn't always come in large doses. Sometimes it's just a few small pieces, chosen wisely, that quietly shift the body back toward balance. For the kidneys, those little wrinkled halves can be exactly the wisdom they need. Now let's turn to perhaps the most surprising member of our story, the tiger nut. Despite the name, tiger nuts aren't nuts at all. They're actually small tubers, little underground treasures that look like wrinkled marbles. And yet, for people with high creatinine, they can be one of the most forgiving and restorative nuts you'll ever eat. Because they're not true nuts, tiger nuts naturally sidestep one of the biggest concerns kidney patients face: phosphorus. They contain very little of it, and what they do have is tied up in a form that's not quickly absorbed. That means less pressure on kidneys already straining to filter waste. They're also quite low in fat, making them gentler on metabolism compared to richer nuts like almonds or cashews. But the magic of tiger nuts lies in their fiber, specifically resistant starch. Think of resistant starch as a special kind of fuel, not for you directly, but for the trillions of bacteria that live in your gut. These bacteria are like tiny housekeepers, sweeping out toxins before they ever reach your kidneys. When tiger nuts feed these microbes, the gut begins producing short-chain fatty acids, which lower inflammation, improve gut lining strength, and reduce the uremic toxins that raise creatinine levels. It's like hiring an extra cleaning crew to take out the trash before it piles up in your home. This gut connection is powerful. At Columbia University, researchers studied kidney patients who improved their gut flora through resistant starch sources. The results showed reduced waste markers like indoxyl sulfate and picresol, two silent villains that worsen kidney damage. Tiger nuts are one of the richest natural sources of this healing starch, making them a quiet but potent ally. There's more. Tiger nuts are rich in magnesium and iron. Magnesium supports cellular processes, from muscle function to blood sugar control, while iron carries oxygen through your blood. Together, they help maintain energy and prevent fatigue, a common complaint when creatinine is high. And because tiger nuts release glucose slowly, they're especially protective for seniors with diabetes, where blood sugar swings can accelerate kidney decline. I recall a patient named Manuel, a retired teacher from Puerto Rico. He loved sweets but struggled with diabetes and early kidney disease. When we introduced soaked tiger nuts as his evening snack, sweet, chewy, naturally satisfying, he found his blood sugar steadier, his cravings calmer, and his lab work improved. It wasn't magic, it was biology, supported by culture and tradition. How can you enjoy tiger nuts yourself? They're best soaked overnight in water to soften their chewy texture. Once softened, they can be eaten slowly as a snack, ground into flour for baking, or blended into a creamy, unsweetened milk. In Spain, a traditional drink called horchata de chufa uses tiger nuts as its base, though I always advise skipping the sugar if you want the kidney benefits. Still, there are cautions. Sweetened or flavored tiger nut products, often sold as trendy snacks, defeat the purpose. And because they're high in fiber, eating too many at once can leave you bloated or uncomfortable. 10 to 15 soaked tiger nuts a day is usually enough. Think of them as a medicine, not a meal. Tiger nuts remind us that healing sometimes comes from the unexpected. A humble tuber, forgotten by many, can quietly support the gut, lighten the kidney's load, and bring balance back to the body. For anyone watching their creatinine numbers inch upward, these little wrinkled treasures may be the gentle friend your kidneys have been waiting for. Before we close, let me share a little non-food secret: contrast hydrotherapy. This simple practice of alternating hot and cold water in the shower works like a pump for your circulation. Hot water opens your blood vessels, cold water narrows them, and the back and forth rhythm drives fresh blood through your kidneys, improving oxygen and waste removal. A University of Wisconsin study even found patients with chronic kidney disease felt more energized and slept better. Start gently, 30 seconds of cool water at the end, and build up slowly as your body adapts. So, if your doctor has ever said, your creatinine is high, don't hear it as a sentence. Hear it as a signal. Pine nuts, chestnuts, walnuts, and tiger nuts each carry unique gifts to protect your kidneys, steady your energy, and ease the burden of waste your body struggles to clear. And with a simple practice like contrast hydrotherapy, you can help your circulation refresh those vital organs every day. Healing is rarely about one big change. It's about small, steady choices. I'm Dr. Brian, and you are never too old to turn the tide toward better health.